The following program is a Town of Colony television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.
Welcome. I'm Kate Dudding. I'm a storyteller, and the program is called Story by Story, celebrating the human experience. It's our show, is we always have a storyteller as a guest, and we're talking about storytelling, one of the oldest performing arts, if not the oldest performing art in the history of the world. Some musicians kind of say they got in it there first, but I'm not really sure about that. And let's bring our storyteller in right away. Joe Doolittle, the other host, is unavailable to be with us today, so I'm feeling a little lonely. So our guest today is Nancy Marie Payne, a wonderful storyteller from Bern.
Bern, yes. Hello, Kate.
Hi. And you also spend a lot of time at Five Rivers.
I am employed by the Friends group there, yes.
Yes. And so as an educator and a storyteller
and whatever they need at the moment.
Owl feeder?
Not anymore.
No?
I did that during my career there. Mm-hmm. But the permanent staff now takes care of that. I'm only part-time.
Yes, that's where I first met you. Of course, I didn't know you then. What I'm trying to say is we brought our son and a friend of his to a program of yours, mm-hmm. and I believe it was supposed to be on snowshoeing, and there was no snow. But you didn't let us down.
No. I created the snow, or
no.
I've been asked to do that. And I've met a couple storytellers there at Five Rivers. Didn't know them at the time. Mm-hmm. And we've become friends over the years.
And I remembered your unusual earrings. Often they're animals.
There, yes.
And so when I met you in the storytelling capacity, I kind of, where was that?
Only if I'm telling animal stories.
Oh, and so you're not today.
Not
so that's
today,
a clue.
No. That's a clue.
That's a clue. So Nancy has a website, nancymariepayne.blogspot.com, and she lists all the different things she can do for you. You list your books.
I list my book.
One book,
that's all right. Hopefully it'll have a companion someday.
Yes. And your CDs.
Yes, those are multiples.
Multiple, and the kinds of programs she can give, and I think a few video samples.
Thanks to you and Joe, yes.
And this show.
Yes, yes. Exactly.
Yes. What kinds of stories do you tell? And then we'll get to a specific gig that you're doing in August.
I will tell just about any genre. I really prefer historical stories, and I like to put my own twist on them so that they sometimes come out to be historical fiction, but the basis is there for the truth. I have written a lot of my stories, and I'm doing a lot of personal stories now. With children, of course. I do all the old-timers, Aesop and a lot of Grimm, with my own twist to them. Stories that I have written
Grimm
myself.
With a little Payne.
He was very grim, or they were very grim.
Yes.
So I like to end my stories on a happy note. And I like to insert humor. Sometimes I have to ask the audience, was there any humor in that story? But I'll give it a shot.
Well, I find with a small group, you really need a laugher to start, because I remember telling Lodi Glocks and the Bee Thrayers. Thank you.
Yes.
It's a twisted fairy tale. So once there were Bee Thrayers, the Great Gig Baddie Deer, the Siddlemice Bombing Mare, and the Lee Whittle Baby Bear. No one laughed. And I wasn't very experienced then, and I could have said, if you want to laugh, you can.
Yes.
Or if you have Marnie Gillard in your audience, she is so responsive.
I do a lot of work with schools and children, and that's one of the first things I teach them, is it's all right to respond. If this makes you happy, let me know. If you're not having a good time with this character, let me know. I'm hoping to bring up an audience of story listeners.
Oh, that's good. I had never thought of that. But I do try to keep an eye on what's going on,
Yes.
and
Yes.
back off or go forward depending on what they're doing.
I have a story that starts off with a character who sounds very funny, and she's a little belligerent to the audience, and the kids start giggling and laughing. But then she goes into her story, which is very somber in the beginning, and the kids look at me like, "Where are you going? This was funny a minute ago." But I bring them back.
Okay. Well, it's good to keep them on their toes and have them. Well, what's going to happen next?
Yes.
You don't give away the whole everything at the very beginning, because then what's there to listen for?
If they know it, sure.
Yeah, this is going to be a scary story, but everything ends up okay at the end because no. Anyways, so this August you are going to be part of a long-running series in the Greater Capital District.
Yes.
It's called Schoharie Crossings. That's a New York State historic
Site.
Yes. And it's for the 27th annual storytelling series they're having there. They call it Not Just for Kids. And son of a gun, it's free. It's on Sundays at 6 p.m. It starts on July 29th. And ends on September 9th. They take Labor Day off because, most people are busy. But you're right just past the middle on August 19th. And what's your program going to be on?
My story is Ruslan and Ludmilla, which is a story written by Alexander Pushkin, the Russian. He did it in prose, and it's a wonderful read. I will not do it in prose. I will be interpreting his story and adapting it to the storytelling mode.
So how did you find this story?
Oh, it was given to me. I was employed by the North Colony School District to work with their seventh graders who were taking Russian studies. And they were building a huge mural of Russian tales in the lobby, and it was a big deal for that year. And then I would go on the road to the elementary schools and do Russian folk tales, and hoping to get them to go into Russian studies when they got in the middle school.
That's not obligatory.
Right.
You have to select it. There's a word, but it's avoiding me there. Yeah.
So the teacher who employed me wanted something dramatic from Russia, and she's the one that suggested Pushkin, whom I'm sorry to say I had never read before that point.
Because you didn't have Russian studies in 7th grade or any other grade.
Or any other grade. And so that was my introduction to him, and I find him very humorous. But, what he did was, as a young man, he was told all the old Russian tales with giants and midgets and magic and mystery and drama and faithful horses and beautiful princesses, all of these stories, all of these archetypes from the Russian literature. And then he took what he wanted and wrote beautiful tales in poetry, using these characters, using some of these plots. And I think he's just wonderful now that I've been introduced to him.
So the stories are original, but the characters aren't
And some of-
necessarily.
And the plots. A lot of the plots you can say, oh, that came from there. Or that
Oh,
came
okay.
from
So
there.
in some ways, he's like Shakespeare.
He's the
because-
Russian Shakespeare. Yeah.
Yeah, because again, Romeo and Juliet, most of them had another version already existing that
Yes.
he adapted.
Right. Right.
Interesting. And I know that at Telebration, which is our annual celebration of stories, and it's a benefit for storytelling in the area, you told in an episodes.
Over 5 years.
Yeah, there was one missing because of she was not available then. But so it doesn't really take 5 years to tell this story. No.
It's about an hour in length.
Okay, 4 sections, a total of an hour. Right, because we didn't let you take a whole hour
No,
on
you didn't.
Telebration.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You were very generous. Yeah. And I loved it at the end when the audience would go, "Oh, more! Give us what happens."
Yeah.
Next teller.
Yes, that's sort of. I think it was before our time that in the movies had
Yes.
serials, The Perils of
Yes.
Pauline, I've
Yes.
heard of.
Yes.
That would end at literally a cliffhanger, somebody hanging off the cliff. I don't think you had that specific one, but Ruslan and Ludmilla were. How would you want to introduce? How much would you want to give away? Because you're telling the first episode, or what are you? Doing it? Oh, you can tell it all.
There,
Excuse me, you've got a
telling
whole
it.
hour.
Actually, I'm not telling it all. That would be about an hour and a half.
Oh.
So I take out one character who's not that important. He's not important to the story itself. One thing that Pushkin did do was just take something and put it in, and it was fun, but it didn't advance the plot, didn't slow down the plot, anything like that. Well, it did
added
slow down the
humor?
plot. It was usually humorous, yes, and this character's condition ended in the story. He didn't die. He got married and lived happily ever after. But it wasn't necessary to the story itself. So I've taken that poor gentleman out.
You executed him.
Oh yeah, chop off his lines.
Well, the storytellers do that. Yes.
And they will continue to do it.
Yes.
That's why I love the oral tradition. That each person who tells the story has their own take on it.
Excuse me. Yes, that there's some tale that goes in the storyteller's ear and it comes out a different way.
A different way every time.
Yes. And then the listener also hears it through what they've experienced in life. And different people will take away different things. That the mothers in the audience might focus on the mother character and see things from her perspective that you weren't necessarily thinking of as the major character. I remember when my son, we dropped him off at college, and as a matter of fact, we came and went to Schoharie Crossing that very afternoon, evening, 6 p.m., to hear Carol Birch tell her long story about Lou Gehrig.
Oh, I was there that night.
Oh.
Yes. That was a great evening.
Yes, yes. And it was. She said she was looking for a story of a first-generation American whose parents were immigrants and that he had made good. And it wasn't that she was a baseball person. I'm going, well, I mean, I was brought up on the Yankees. I know. She had to learn the stuff that I knew, but you know. Anyways, I could have done that, but I didn't. And our story, I've never done that. Anyways, I digress. But in her story, it's about his career and then how he gets ill and how his wife did things to keep him active, that they used to go out socially and go to plays that she was interested. So she had the theater people come in to their apartment. But there was one thing in it that his mother did not like his wife. and there was friction. There was friction there. And having just dropped my only child off at college, I thought, well, whoever he brings home, I'll welcome them. They love him, I will love them.
Yes.
Which I think was probably a fairly unique takeaway from that story.
Granted, not everybody did, but it was a good one
that
for you.
hadn't occurred to you.
No, it hadn't.
Okay. Anyways, we digress. We've been going for about 15 minutes, and I think we'd like to hear a story.
I'd like to tell one.
Okay.
I'd like you to think back to your first paycheck. I don't mean the one where you washed windows or you babysat or you worked at McDonald's for a few months. I mean your real paycheck from your real job. The job you thought about, the job you trained for, maybe went to college for, the job that you intended to be your career. And you got that job. And then you got your first paycheck. Now, there's things you had to do with that first paycheck. But did you do something special for yourself? What I did was I bought myself a pen and pencil set. I didn't need a pen and pencil set. It was a little outside the range of what I should have spent on myself. But that's what I wanted. I'd seen it in a magazine. One of those beautiful, colorful write-ups, and there it is in all its glory. Wooden. It was made of wood. And I have an affinity for things made of wood. A pen and pencil set. It looked so delicate and so feminine. This is what I planned to do when I had extra money. The article said that it was available at fine jewelry stores in your area. Well, there was a jewelry store in my area, a couple blocks away. And so when I'd paid the bills I had to pay and put down money on other things that had to have a money on them, I went into that jewelry store. It wasn't very big. And lo and behold, there's a glass cabinet with pen and pencil sets, and some of them were wood. Well, I looked at those beautiful sets in beautiful wooden boxes, and I saw maple wood, oak wood, cherry wood, chestnut wood. Oh, they were beautiful. Some had golden tips, some of them had silver tips. Gold was a little bit ostentatious for me. So I was looking at the silver tips. And the owner came out from the back and said, "Oh, I see you're admiring those sets. Would you like to see one?" I said, "Oh, I'd love to see one. May I see the maple?" And so he brought it out. And the wood of the box was much darker. That wasn't maple. And in the box, there was this silk lining. It just had a little indentation for each article to sit in, the pen toward the back, the pencil toward the front. They were just captivating me. He said, go ahead, pick one up. And he gave me a piece of paper. He said, "Go ahead, use it." And I picked it up, and I just closed my eyes and felt that wood, the grain all the way coming from top to bottom. Oh, and it fit. It just fit in my hand. I was holding the pen, and I started to write with it. And it had a thin point. And for someone with a clumsy handwriting, a thin point is much better. I was very pleased with it. He said, do you feel the sheen on it? And I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "The longer you use that pen, and the longer you touch it, the more you touch it, your oils and that sheen will combine to make a brand new coating. It will be specific and unique to you." And, oh man, this is beautiful. So it had a silver clip. It had a ring around the center that said Hallmark. And I've always cared enough to give the best, and buy the best. And then the silver tip on the bottom. Sold. $65. That was an extravagance. But I figured I'm going to have this all my life. Well, I took that pen and pencil box home, and I admired it again, and I picked up the pen. And the pen, oh, that said Mom to me. My mother had an elegant handwriting. Now, I don't know why it skipped me, but she had mastered the Palmer method in school. She could make those spirals that looked 3D on the paper, perfect. And all her letters were just so elegant. She deserved a pen like this. She also deserved to write on parchment, but she didn't have either one of those things. So that pen said Mom to me. The pencil, my dad was a mechanical engineer, and he had mechanical pencils. And I always thought they were so much fun. But Nancy, that's not a toy, it's a tool. Please don't play with it. You play with it by making the lead go out and come back in. You play with it by taking the cover off, taking the eraser off, taking the extra lead out and breaking it. Not a good idea. But he would let me use one in his presence. And so even though this pencil was not as hefty as the ones he had, I think of my dad when I used a pencil. Now, they both had very different lives. The pen, they both went in my pocketbook at first. They both went in my pocketbook in the box at first, but eventually I got rid of the box. And that pen signed so many documents. It signed so many slips, credit slips. You know, when you go to the store and you buy something and they give you a pen to sign, no, I wouldn't take their pen. I'd take my pen out, because this was important to me. Birthday cards, anniversary cards, wedding cards, invitations, letters. Everything was done in that pen. All of the transactions when my husband and I bought our first piece of property, all the transactions were done with that pen. All the checks that bought that land. That huge check. The cashier in the bank said, I've never seen a check that big. I said, I never wrote a check that big. To bring the first installment of wood that built our log home. That pen was used on all the paperwork that I had to sign around my husband's death. That pen has so many memories. The pencil, now that had a totally different life. It jammed by the middle of the first year. It wouldn't twist, the lead wouldn't go out, the lead wouldn't go in. I got myself a thin piece of metal and slammed it down. It wouldn't break the lead up, nothing would work. I put it in the drawer. One day I took it out and I was playing really, debating on whether I should take a wrench to this, but it wasn't the way to go. And my sister called me. Now, when my sister had married, she and her husband had moved to Kansas City. And so she said, what are you doing, sis? And I said, oh, I'm fiddling with this pencil of mine. The Hallmark pencil? I said, yeah, it jammed and I can't use it. Well, take it back to the store. Duh, I tried that. The store's no longer there. Well, take it to a Hallmark store. I'm not much of a shopper. I said, Hallmark has their own stores? Yes. Fine. And lo and behold, the mall a couple miles away had a Hallmark store. So I took it in there, and no, Hallmark didn't make those pen and pencil sets anymore, and no, they didn't have any idea what I could do. A couple weeks later, when my sister and I talked again, the pencil came up, and I said, I bottomed out. She said, well, send it back to Hallmark. Hallmark is the home base of the Hallmark company. And my sister is a Hallmark addict. She's got everything Hallmark. You get a letter from her and you turn it over, it's got a Hallmark seal to close it. She's just, in her earlier days especially, the house was full of everything Hallmark. She said, why don't you send it back to the company? Ask them what to do about it. She's the younger sister, but sometimes she comes up with some good ideas. So she gave me the address, and I tried it. And I wrote them this letter with the pen and told them how much this pen and pencil set meant to me. And off it went. Didn't hear, nothing happened. Weeks went by, and I gave up on it, a lost cause. Until one day a box came in the mail from Kansas City, Hallmark. I was excited. I opened it up and there was a letter, so I calmed myself and I read the letter first. Dear Nancy. Dear Nancy, wow. Thank you for being a Hallmark customer. Unfortunately, we no longer make wooden pen and pencil sets. But I walked around the factory until I found a pencil. It's not maple and it's not silver, but I hope you will accept it and it will serve you well. I opened up the box. The rest of the way, there was my pencil. They'd put mine back in. And there was a rosewood pencil. It was beautiful. It's a little bit different than my set. For one thing, it had a golden tip and a golden band, but it didn't have a clip to hold into your pocket or to hold into your pocketbook. I put it in my hand. Same feel. Just beautiful. And I introduced it to my maple pen. They hit it right off the bat. But before I started using it, no clip, no silver band. I took my pencil apart, put the silver band on the rosewood bottom with the gold tip and the maple top. I have the most unique pencil in all the world. This pencil has served me well. One of the things that I do with it a lot is first drafts of what I write. I go to writing workshops every summer, and all my first drafts are in pencil. That pencil. Over the years, my fingers have they've lost some of their strength, and my hand slips down, the pen especially. So I've put a rubber tip on it so that I can hold it. It takes away some of the elegance, but it doesn't take away any of the beautiful memories. So again, I ask you, what did you buy for yourself that has a story? And who have you told that story to? Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. You didn't bring them with you.
No, I'm sorry, I did not. I left them out in the car. But I do have them. They're in the car.
In the box or not?
No, the box is turned into a jewelry box for my rings.
Okay. Let's see. I thought so many wonderful thoughts when you were telling. I loved the way you described the great detail you went into in the box, in the two indentations, and that reminded me of boxes for instruments, how they're custom made and have the special contours needed to protect them. And wood. Well, wood has so many warmth and it's present in everyone's lives in various contexts. And when you said they had two very different lives, at first I thought you were talking about your parents, because you would just that one. But then it was very clear that you were talking about the pen. But there was sort of a parallel there.
I always get very, I guess, a little sentimental when I talk about the man who sent me that stuff. I love people who love what they do. And they don't have to own the company, they don't have to own the business, but they take great pride in their part of it. And they'll take the extra step for you. And he certainly did that.
Customer service.
Yes.
He found his niche.
Yes.
Yes, he clearly did. And
yes.
he walked the factory looking for
a pencil.
And, now, I wonder how it got. That could be a whole nother.
I know it. I know. Why was it left behind? Why was there only a pencil? And where was it? What department did it end up in?
Right. I wonder if it was. He went into the furniture section. You know that some businesses they put the old desks aside, and when somebody comes and they need another desk,
okay.
they reuse it. So if some reorganization had happened, and that it might have been there for any number of years and sort of ignored in there, or
And it wasn't used, because you can tell when they're used, again, that patina that they develop from
and
touch.
it lost its clip.
It never had a clip. It was a different style.
Okay.
It was a different style.
See, the clip was, I was, and what happened to the clip? Oh, well, storytellers, you don't need much of a beginning of a story to get our imaginations flowing and creating an epic. A friend of mine, a storyteller from Florida, Pat Neese, Nease, she told a story at the very first National Storytelling Conference that I went to about a pair of socks, and they were always together, and they would go into the wash and they go into the dryer. They'd be a little separated, in those two places, but then they were paired up again and in the drawer together, But one day, only one of them came out of the dryer. The other one was gone, and it was this epic of loss and coping and hoping. And
Poor dryers. They really are voracious eaters.
But it could have been the washer.
Really?
It could have been the
Maybe.
washer that I heard somebody, another friend of mine, had her washing machine repaired, and all these little baby socks had been sucked in somewhere.
Yeah.
And
I've had that happen.
Yeah.
Not socks, but they opened it up and there was a rag in there. How did that get inside?
The washing machine that ate the rag.
Yes.
They are also very hungry. So she just has an idea for another story about lost objects. And I suggested she could have a whole book.
Yeah.
And so I have a note to send her a little note about, ever think of a pen and pencil set?
Yeah.
That they would have different adventures than the pair of socks.
They did, yeah.
Yes. So, well, we'll get back to you in a little bit, but now it's time for coming attractions. Now, a number of the local storytelling series go on summer break, and that includes the Saratoga Storytelling Open Mic, Shawnee Evenings at the Irish American Heritage Museum in Albany, and the Interfaith Story Circle program. But they'll be back in September. But still going on, we have the first Tuesday Tales and Stuff, the day before the 4th of July. July 3rd is the first Tuesday in July, and the topic will be Summer Stories and Songs. So that's Arthur's Market is a lovely little place right in the middle of the Stockade section of Schenectady. They have food for sale there. It's optional and a very cozy atmosphere.
Yes.
You've been there.
And a rug and a
Easy chairs.
Easy chairs, yes.
And I was sitting where I could look out the windows in the corner, and there was Lawrence, the statue of Lawrence, the Mohawk Indian who was a member of the First Reformed Church, around a couple of corners from there. So it's a lovely place. Then on July 8th, I will be telling up at Weowaka, a retreat center for women, but in July, men are welcome to come also. My program will be on Sunday, July 8th at 7 p.m. about Georgia O'Keeffe, her home and her art. This is part of a whole week of Georgia O'Keeffe activities, because she had stayed at Weowaka itself when she was an art student in New York City. She had come up for a program there. And then she married the photographer Alfred Stieglitz, and his family had a large home pretty much opposite Weowaka on the west side of Lake George, the busy, noisy side, whereas Weowaka is on the quiet east side. So they have a lovely campus. You can stay overnight. You can just come for meals. You could just come get a day pass. and enjoy the property. They have a dock where you can go swimming off of. It's just a lovely, quiet, beautiful place. So you can come just to hear me, or you can come, and for additional money, of course, you can have dinner and then hear me, or you can get the day pass and spend the day there, bring your own lunch and have dinner and,
Hear you.
or you even bring your dinner and then just hear me. But you should hear me. No. I have one story based on a book she published in 1976 when she was in her 80s, and it's all her own words describing paintings. So it's like you're getting her giving you a tour of her art and explaining what she was doing rather than what the critics thought she was doing, which often was not what she was doing. And then the second part is based on, I took a tour of one of her homes in New Mexico, the second home she bought, Abiquiu. And I've taken a lot of pictures from the internet because they did not allow you to bring anything on the tour. They had lockers, and you put everything but your water bottles in, and you had your water bottle and the key to your locker, and off you went on the tour. So I had to borrow images there, and then I relate them back to some of the artwork that she's done. Okay, so next we have our Story Circle meeting. Story Circle goes on every month, and it will be on the third Tuesday of the month, July 17th, 6 to 8 p.m., right here in Colony Town Library somewhere. They're undergoing some wonderful reconstruction, and we're going to have it wherever they tell us is available. Then we come back to Schoharie Crossing, and starting its 6 weeks of storytelling on Sundays, and they're not just for kids series, Sundays at 6 p.m. Schoharie Crossing is right on, guess what, the Schoharie River. And I believe that's where, there used to be a bridge where you could cross.
Aqueduct.
Aqueduct. Oh, excuse me. Tell me more.
The Erie Canal crossed Schoharie Creek, and in order, because the creek was so erratic, they built an aqueduct over it.
So it's like a bridge that it was filled with water, sort of like a large shallow bathtub, because I think the Erie Canal was only like 6 inches deep. It wasn't.
I think it might have been more than
foot?
that. Yeah, it
But
wasn't much.
It wasn't
much. No.
Yeah, because you didn't have to have a big keel if you're being pulled along, and there are really no waves. There were no power boats going by.
No.
So to move it from one place to another, they built a water bridge for it. So you could have been in a boat on the creek having a boat go overhead.
Yes.
Like we have railroad tracks that go over
Yes.
bridges and you're on roads.
Yes.
Okay, the aqueduct. I didn't know that. I know Rexford has had an aqueduct also.
And you know why? There was no physical reason why the Erie Canal had to cross into Saratoga County. Politics. The politicians in Saratoga wanted to get some of the federal money that was available for the Erie Canal.
You get more than 2 people in politics are involved. Just one, you just have arguments. Okay, so that series starts on July 29th with Corinne Stavish. She's a wonderful these are all wonderful storytellers.
Yes.
From Michigan. And then August 5th is Jennifer Monroe from Connecticut. And then a fabulous comic storyteller, but he has a lot of depth also. Andy Arfoot Irwin. He was here for the Riverway Storytelling Festival. And he's also a professional whistler. And he's hired to whistle at people's weddings, for instance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's a man of many talents.
Yes, so.
And who knows what he's going to be doing on August 12th. Then we have Nancy Marie Payne with Ruslan and Ludmilla. They'll be coming with you.
They are.
Yes, and who else?
And the giants, Chernobyl the dwarf, and
There's a
there's a whole, and the dragon will be there.
oh that's wizard. Rock paper scissors.
Oh,
you can do elves. Elves something and then wizards.
Oh, I'm
casting a spell.
Yeah, well, there's
you
some,
haven't-
there's some great spells.
Yes. Then on August 26th from the Chicago area, Anne Shimojima, she has done a lot of studies. Her parents were interned during the World War II because they lived on the West Coast. And so she's done a lot of, well, I think they were third generation Americans, you know. So she's done a lot of research on that. She's a librarian. That's her day job. So I've heard her at National Storytelling Conferences. And then our very own Claire Nolan, ending it on September 9th, the Sunday after Labor Day. Okay. And then as a coming attraction,
Come.
this is hot off the press. The three producers of word plays, that's Joe Doolittle and me, and then Siri Allison, who's the producer of word plays in Salem, have come up with our titles for the year. On September 16th at Proctor's will be Mavericks. And then in October, Irresistible. I might tell a chocolate story. Then on the 27th, starting over, we thought January, that's a month where people start over exercise programs, diets, so maybe that would work out. One of us came up with the title for February, Inside Out. I wonder what stories our fellow storytellers will come up that relate to Inside Out.
You got me churning.
Yeah. And then April 7th, because that's near April Fool's Day, ending with Shenanigans. Mavericks and will be up at Salem also. And then our celebration topic, which will be at Proctor's on November 18th, is Sparks. So, more information will be available at our website, storycircle@proctors.org, and click on Word Plays at Proctor's or Word Plays at Salem. And another thing you can find on our website is over 200 stories on demand, most of them filmed right here in the TV studio for the town of Colony. Yes. Just checking with all of the staff over there in the corner. They're all called Greg Rosinski, who's a wonderful person to work with. We are so happy to be here. So Nancy, we have a little over 15 minutes left, and I believe you have another story up your sleeve, or
It's a short story. These are short sleeves. Yes, I do. The story comes from India. There once was a husband and wife who had a son. One son, one child. And he was an awful disappointment to his father. His father, the boy wasn't smart, the boy wasn't clever, the boy wasn't efficient, the boy wasn't funny, the boy wasn't an athlete, the boy wasn't. The father had almost given up on him. But the mother said, don't be foolish. Someday that boy is going to do something brilliant. Yeah. The father wasn't convinced, but he loved his wife and he gave her the benefit of the doubt. He said, well, one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to arrange a marriage for him. Nobody's going to want that good for nothing. The wife just rolled her eyes. But I'll give him another chance. I'll come up with a test for him. And again, the mother rolled her eyes. A test. So the father came up with this plan. Called the boy in. He was really a young man. And he said, put out your hand. And his son put out the hand, and the father put in his hand one coin. Not a very high denomination. Boy looked at his father, did the coin. He said, yes, Father? Father said, I want you to go to the market, and I want you to buy something to eat, something to drink for the family, not just yourself, something for all of us to eat, to drink, something to plant, and something to give to the cow. You're kidding, right, Father? I never kid. And the father walked away. The young man looked at that coin. He wants me to fail. He wants me to fail. He walked out the door and started walking toward the village, scuffing his feet, mumbling to himself, this is ridiculous. This is stupid. No one could do this. He sat down by the river just before he got to the town. This is embarrassing. He didn't even want to go into the town. And he put his hands on his head and he's mumbling to himself. And just then, the blacksmith's daughter came out of town with a jar to collect water. And she saw this poor, pathetic young man sitting on that rock, mumbling. She walked over, are you all right? Is there anything I can do for you? Well, a pleasant voice, and someone said, what can I do for you? And he just poured it all out. My father is so strict. My father doesn't give me a chance. My father doesn't. All the things that young men say about their fathers. And then he said, now I got this coin. And I've got to go to market, and I've got to buy for the family something to eat, something to drink, something to plant, and something to give to the cow. It's ridiculous. And she looked at him and said, I'd buy a watermelon. And then she went down to the river to get her water, and he sat there and watched her go. Watermelon. You can eat it. You can get the juice and drink it. You can plant the seeds, and the cow will love the rock. He jumped up, and he ran into town, and he got the biggest watermelon he could for that coin, which wasn't huge, but it was substantial. And he took it home holding that like, don't fall, don't break. And he got it home. And he ran up to his parents and he said to his father, here, Father, something to eat, something to drink, something to plant, something to give the cow. Well, his father looked at him in disbelief. The boy started to walk away. His father said, come back here. Did you think of this all by yourself? Well, the boy was not a liar. He said, no, Father, actually I met a girl on the road. Her mother's ears perked up. A girl? Who? I think she's the blacksmith's daughter. She gave me the idea. Mother and father converse. They're going to invite the blacksmith and his family to come to dinner that night. And they do. And she's lovely. The mother approved too. And as time went on, the two young ones fell in love and they got married. On the day of the wedding, the boy and his bride take off for their new home, and the father and the mother walk home together, and the father looks at his wife and he says, you know what? He didn't really pass my test. She thought of it, not him. What am I going to do with that boy? And the mother said, you're wrong. You're wrong, husband. He did something wonderful. The husband said, what? He married a brilliant wife. Just like you did, my husband.
Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Where did you find that gem?
I have this fantastic book that Around the World in 80 Tales. And I'm sorry, I'm blank on the author at the moment. But it has one-page stories. And sometimes when you look these up on the internet, they have fantastic backgrounds. The reasons that they were written, the regions that they came from. They come from longer sources. And So I've had a lot of fun with this book over the years, and taken their little tidbits and elaborated on them.
It doesn't have to be a Margaret Reed MacDonald.
Yes, yes, it
does.
does. Yes, it does. Thank you, Kate. You saved me.
Because she has a lot of books that she's published. And it had a little flavor of her work. So,
Yeah.
and she speaks very quickly. I heard her at one
did you?
National Storytelling Conference. And so when I bought her book of 3-minute tales, I knew these are 5-minute tales. 3 for her, 5 for the...
I have those too. I love those books,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. And I wrote down, and why, as you were starting, well, I'll ask, why does it appeal to you? Let me think.
I think it's another one of those underdog stories, not going to make anything of himself, and then he just happens to fall in with the person that's going to change his life, and he's smart enough to marry her.
Okay, underdogs. That might be a good topic for.
Oh,
for
yeah,
a
we're
always in these things, and in fact, today I passed a repair shop, and it said steadfast. I'm going, ooh,
there's
that's
another
a
one.
good- yeah.
Write that
so
down.
now I've written both of them down because often I don't remember these little gems. I remember I had it, but it goes right out of there. Yeah, so it's an underdog story. It has a little, reminds me of not Clever Gretel, Clever Monka. That the father, it starts out with the father has taken his horse to the market, just
Oh, okay.
and there are other people there, and the horse gave birth to a colt under somebody else's wagon, and the owner of the wagon claims the colt. So they go before the judge, and the judge said, "Oh, yeah, it belongs to. It doesn't really pay much attention, and just belongs to the wagon owner." And the Manka's father comes home going rah, 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 rah. And so she said, "Oh, yes, well, we're going to have to get the judge's attention." And so she starts this plan, and the judge starts asking her questions. Oh, and she keeps on being able to answer them. Now it sounds, and they get married. And then, but he has her promise
Oh, yes.
never to counter
Yes.
nose into his business. And then one day something happens, and she does. But he said, "But you can take what you want most home with you." I said, "Oh, well, we've had a good marriage up until now. I'll make you a wonderful dinner tonight." And then she plies him with food and wine. He gets drunk, he falls asleep, and then she takes him home with her. And when he wakes, he goes, I need you. And anyways.
What did you say the origin of that was?
Clever Monka, and I think it might be Russian.
That's interesting because I have that same theme story from Africa.
Well,
I love that. I just love that.
Well, Margaret Reed MacDonald wrote another book called, I think, The Storyteller's Handbook or Storyteller's Guide, and it was her PhD dissertation. And she has what am I trying to say? You can trace a theme, a story theme, or even like donkey. So there's this, it's multiply indexed, that there are words, there are themes, there are areas, and then there are the books where you can find it.
Nice.
So you could look up donkey and get a lot of donkey tales, and then follow them. That I used that for Gert Johnson asked me to do Stone Soup for one of the Winter Lights concerts put on by the Interfaith Story Circle, and the one that I knew I didn't really like very much. That the soldier was tricking the people.
Oh.
And it didn't seem But using her book, I found like 12 different sources, and because Lois Foyt Hodges had been head children's librarian, Schenectady Public Library, the main branch, had most of these folktale books. So I was able to read all these different variants, and then I came across one where he was more community building, or that he wasn't quite the trickster, and so that's where my version.
Nice. Yes. Yes.
How I turned that into something that I wanted to tell, because I didn't really want to tell the trickster version. It just, I don't really tell hero stories where the main character is the villain. I can't relate to them. And I know there are people that do that, and that clearly they view it as the villain, but I don't want to spend that much time with them. I mean, there's always some sort of trouble or villain or conflict in a story, but
I have to like my characters too.
Yeah, that's the way we go. I mean, and last night at the Saratoga Storytelling Mike, Margaret French took great delight in telling the Blackbeard story, Bluebeard story, and the piles of the dead bodies of the young women, each in their own blood. I'm going, now how does she know that? I'm trying to avoid creating that image in my mind. She didn't end. I thought you could have ended, and they all lived happily ever after, except for Bluebeard, of course, because he had been chopped into 1,000 different little pieces by her brothers, our heroine's brothers, and Anyway, so the appeal, and that was Indian.
Yes.
But if you go to Margaret Reed MacDonald and look up Dullard, or I don't know, some...
Well, a lot of the Jack tales are like that too.
Yes, but it's often a clever woman that...
Isn't that interesting? Yes.
Well, they say opposites attract. With my husband and me, I'm usually the one into details, and he's got the big picture. Similar to Joe and me.
Your two husbands, yes.
Well, no. Partners.
There we go.
Producing partner, life partner.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. But I finally realized after 19 years that if we had both been into details, we'd never get anything done. We'd just be arguing. And if we were both broad pictures, we would never get it done right or adequately. And so
or at all.
I've learned to plan quickly, and even on the days when I don't plan to be spontaneous. I actually said that to him once, that out of the blue, I'm planting plants. He's just coming home from recreational soccer match our son had. He said, Rudy said, why don't we go climb Mount Joe up in the Adirondacks this afternoon? And I'm going, you don't notice I'm in the middle of a project? And I went, wait, I didn't plan to be spontaneous. Give me a minute here. Okay, I don't have to plant the rest of these. They're in good shape, I can do it next weekend, but I haven't gotten clean, so you go buy us lunch somewhere, and I'll have time to get clean and get ready to go. And then I thought, and I'll pack a change of clothes, because we could get hot, and they have public showers there, and our bathroom bags. And my husband decided, no, let's stay up. Once we were there, let's stay overnight. But we were all set, and I had my knitting and a book, and I'm all set.
You're all set.
Bathroom bag, knitting, book, change of clothes. I'm pretty well good. So our time has already passed. So, Nancy Marie Payne, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for the invitation.
We hope you'll go to Schoharie Crossing, especially on August 19th, did I say?
That's what you said, yeah.
To see Nancy Marie Payne and hear Ruslan and Ludmilla. But please try to catch at least one of the Story Sundays. Did I mention they're free? And it's... you get off at the Amsterdam exit on the New York State Thruway, and it's about 5 miles from there. It's not hard to get to at all.
Going west.
Going west. Go west. And we hope you'll come back for Story by Story. Thank you for coming today.
It goes goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round,